Everyone. My name is Chris Sarski, and I'm one of the consultants for the CART Consortia. And I have the pleasure today of working with my colleague who I've had a chance to work with over the year in grade 3. And we're going to share a bunch of information for you for the new grade 1 math kits. I'll let Marianne introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Marianne Baden. I've been working with Star Catholic Schools for 20 years. And I'm really excited to share the sample kits that we've created with you.
And that's kind of the operative word that Marianne just used. They're sample kits. This is not a prescribed something that came from Alberta Education or that you have to have. But we just found that as we went through the year, we were handing out a lot of things to the students. And then Marianne said, you know, wouldn't it be better if we just had a kit where every child just pulls it out and they've got all their stuff there? Then we're not begging and pulling and doing whatever. And absolutely brilliant suggestion. So that's actually how these kits all came about. So there is a kit for kindergarten to grade 3. There could possibly be one for 4 to 6, but we're not sure about that one yet. So as I just want to reiterate, it's sample, it's suggested, it's not required, but a lot of people have been asking, what could I have available readily for grade 1? And so this is what we're going to share with you, some of the things that we've used in grade 2, grade 3, and that we can already see are going to be needed in grade 1. So we're going to do this sort of in 3 components. First of all, we'll show you what's in the grade 1 kit, sort of as an overview, and Marianne will take you through the different pieces and components. We'll sort of unpack some of them a little bit more specifically because some of them have a little bit more importance, and just so that you understand why we have them in there and what's on them. And then if you have some of those in your class, and just because we show you a particular set of cards doesn't mean that's what you have to use. If you have something similar in class, use those. If you are looking to purchase something, we'll give you some suggested sites that we got our materials from. Nothing super expensive. We kind of use the dollar store wherever we could and whenever we could. So I'll let Marianne start us off and just kind of step us through all the things that we see in here.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So in the grade 1 math kit, we've included the addition and subtraction cards in there. We've also included cards that have our Canadian currency on it, as well number cards from 0 to 100. They have the numbers on there as well as the words for the numbers. We have a set of subitizing cards, set of dominoes. We have 3 different colored dice. We also have geometry cards, which show shapes and also shows colors when they're overlapped.
Oh, sorry.
We have those are foam geometric shapes. Also some shape cards. We have the money bags with coins and bills. And then we have cubes in there that we'll talk about more later, but they're just colored wooden cubes that you write numbers on.
Okay.
Here for grade 1, we have our money kits. So we've included this specific amount of bills. Sometimes what we'll do is throw in an extra coin to make sure that the kids are counting, and so that they understand that they're not just grabbing all the pennies and saying it's 10, that they're actually counting. Skip counting is important in grade 1. So we've included the bills there so that the students can skip count using the bills by 5 and 10. I think it's also important for grade 1s to understand, what does a $5 bill look like? What does a quarter look like? So often we use debit cards, and perhaps grade 1s haven't seen a lot of the money. So it's important that they have a chance to use it and count. We also have the teacher's money bin at the back in case you need to make any change for the kids, or, you know, make it even out.
And with the money, because they're going to 100 in counting, we are not necessarily looking to put 100 of any of the bills in here, but they do, as Marianne said, need to know the bills. And that in theory would have come to you, they would have come to you with that already in the new kindergarten program. But because they haven't experienced the new kindergarten, they won't know the new coins or the value of bills. So you are going to back up and do the kindergarten materials first, which is identification of coins, which it says right in your curriculum anyway, and the value of the coins, and what are some of the what are some of the discriminating designs that I see on, like a beaver on the nickel and those types of things, that I would be able to identify them quickly. And then to be able to use them to do the math facts up to 20. And that's why you're seeing the numbers here that you are, so that they can take, you know, can you show me 4 5s? Can you show me 6 5s? How many 5s do you have? They're not so much into finding equivalence. That isn't necessarily part of it, but some students will know that already, and you'll be able to gauge that as time goes on. But really, you're looking at the math facts to 20, and so you've got enough coins in there to meet that need. The subitizing cards are really critical, and the more we have those subitizing cards, the better, because we really want students to be able to quickly identify patterns of numbers, that this is a 10 frame, and not count each individual dot to see that these are 8 fingers. The more students are able to identify subitized quantities, in other words, to be able to do them quickly, the better they are at math facts. And that's what research has shown. That's not just something we're kind of pulling out of the top of our heads. The more that students are able to subitize and quickly subitize, the better it is. And the more they do this in grade 1, it goes to grade 2, then we can use these 2 cards, right? We can use 2 cards and add them together, make a 2-digit number. They could play war right now with somebody else and call out what's the highest number that you see that's been turned over with 2 of you, or whatever. Just 5 minutes a day would make a huge difference for a lot of students. By the time they get to grade 3, they could use these for multiplication. So turn 2 over, what's your math fact for multiplication? So just a fun way for them to be doing all of their outcomes that they should be doing, but doing it in a way that they're learning and having a good time at the same time. These are the cards that we have for you that touch on some of the major outcomes that you're going to be addressing as you go along, key terminology that goes along with some of those outcomes. And so some of the resources that are in the kit will match some of the things that you're looking at here, like, for example, shapes. They are doing symmetry. And just for the sake of keeping this card all on, it's turned sideways, but nonetheless, we want them to be able to see, what does it mean to have a line of symmetry? They don't necessarily have to draw the line, but they have to be able to show you that the shape has symmetry. And how would I do that? Fold it in half. Do the 2 pieces fit right over top of one another? And before they would go out and find things in the classroom to do that, maybe I could do that with some pliable foam pieces. I'll let you take this one over, Marianne.
So there's the foam pieces Chris was talking about. It's a nice visual. They can play with those. They're pliable, so they can fold them and refold them. So looking for the lines of symmetry on there. We've also included a clock. Grade 1s don't need to know the time, but they can use it for counting. So they can skip count by 5s. They could even count the minutes up to 60. So it's more just to be familiar with and to use for their counting.
And you could use the clock without them knowing how to tell time. You could use the clock to find where would the hands need to be for it to be symmetry, for the clock to be the same on the left and the right. And it's not just always at 6 o'clock and always at 9 and 3 o'clock. There's lots of different possibilities that I can come up with. So it's letting them just play with these hands to do that. And these came in sets of 4. So it gives you quite a few just to start off with without having to buy individual ones for students. The decomposing composing numbers, you're all familiar with that, but this just gives them a template or a placemat for which they can do that. So they can do that with money. And that would be the place to start. Money should be your absolute priority to get started. Introducing money to knock off a number of outcomes that you're doing right at the beginning of the year. You can use money for them. You're always revisiting those outcomes in grade 1. So then I can bring in Cuisenaire rods and still do the same outcome again. I can bring in base 10 blocks and still do the same outcome. But if I could start with money first, I can also use my number line for money. I can use the number line for counting and skip counting. And if I can see it in increments of different colors like I see here, then I can skip count to 100 by 10 and so on. And I can even do it by 5s here as well. I should maybe go back to the 120s chart. We'll see it again, but nonetheless, it starts at 0 because they're asking you to have number lines that start at 0. So we actually used the 100 chart to start at 0 as well, so that students see the connection between the 0 column, the 1 column, the 2 column, and so on. And that it makes sense to them that when they're going through and counting, that they realize that 0 is a number. Very often when we start at 1, and there's nothing wrong with having a 1 to 100 or a 1 to 120 chart, nothing wrong with that at all. But what it implies is that 0 isn't a number. And this is something that they are emphasizing in our new curriculum, is that 0 should be included and visible all the time. And that 0 has a measurable quantity of nothing, right? We want to introduce that and get that out in the open very quickly. And so we've given you a 1 to 120 chart instead of a 1 to 100, so that students see what it looks like to go beyond 100. They often fall into sort of the cracks with that when they're counting. And so just so that they have it available. Again, if you have some of these in your classroom, you obviously don't need to order them. If you don't need to buy them, that's for sure. You can just get them free off the internet. Do you want to talk about measuring tapes, Marianne?
Okay, so we chose this measuring tape so that the kids can measure things out, not only flat, straight surfaces, but round or shaped. The reason we like this measuring tape, because it does show the skip counting by 10. So the decimeters are alternating in different colors, so that they get a sense of what is 10 and how when I'm counting by 10, what does that look like?
Yeah, and they don't use the imperial measure in grade 1. They do it in grade 3. Some measuring tapes don't have it. Most of them do have imperial on one side, metric on the other. If you have the opportunity to have both, that's good. It's good for them just to know that it's there. They might just ask, why are these numbers look different than these? And you can just talk about it. Certainly nothing you would assess. But in the end, they will be moving towards that in grade 3. So having it available isn't a bad thing. But if you can find something like Marianne found here with these multiple colors going at 10 centimeters, that's awesome. Like, those are great. And when we look at this is the money. Do you want to talk a little bit about why we bagged it, Marianne?
Yeah, well, just to make it easier, we put all the money, so each kid has a bag of money in their kit. We put it in the Ziploc just for managing it. And it was nice because the kids can just take out their bag and their money's in there.
And we also didn't do that right at the beginning of the year. We did lots with money right until Christmas, and we were forever going and getting money until Marianne came up with the brilliant suggestion of, let's just bag a bag for each child and have them ready to roll. So you learn as you go, for sure. The numbers that you see here, the cubes, are random, but I want to just give you some idea of, they do place value, but really we're talking about place value in a smaller amount. And we're not adding numbers per se that go beyond 20, but they are required to know to 100, and they have to be able to skip count or recite those numbers at any point from 0 to 100. So you could randomly take, and again, differentiate these based on the needs of your children. So you've got single digit ones for sure. You've got some that go up to 9, or in this case could go larger. We've got some that are just even numbers, but random numbers. You see a 72, 22, there's a 38 on the other side. We have some that end in zeros, and we have some that end in 5s. So you could roll one of these and just say, can you skip count by 5s from by whatever number comes up, right? There's one way to do it. You could roll 2 of these and say, could you count the numbers? Can you tell me the numbers between 9 and 25? So lots of different ways. It's engaging, it's interactive, because the kids are going to roll these things. They're not just getting a number on a worksheet and filling in a bunch of blanks. So it means that they might work with a partner. Maybe they're working with you if it's a summative, or they're just working with teams and they're filling it in on a piece of paper. They write down what their number was at the beginning they rolled, and they wrote down what it's at the end, which means every team might have different numbers, and that's fine. And you can make these higher up for those who are ready to do higher up numbers, and keep them lower down for those who are not yet ready to go beyond 50 or beyond 30 or whatever. So you can have different sets of them. So just a sense of how we might address getting to the hundreds and doing it in a different way. This is just, as we mentioned at the beginning, where we would buy or where we did get some of these materials. This whole bag of foams, I think that there were 100 in the bag of assorted different shapes. There's cylinders, there's cubes in there, and those are shapes that they have to do. They have to be able to know if it rolls and what's a circle and what's a cylinder and what makes the edge and so on. So those were really well priced out as far as I was concerned, and you don't need a ton of them in each kit. The clocks come in groups of 4s. These come from Dollarama. You can also get them in wood, just plain wood, and there's way more in the bag. Plain wood's fine. They don't have to be colored necessarily, unless you want to put colors together for different values that you're using. That might be the only way to do it. You may have addition subtraction cards already in your class. If you don't, you can get them at Dollarama. You can also get them at Dollar Tree. They come in groups of 9 for dice. So again, if you can just vary the colors, it will be helpful later too as you do place value. Again, Dollarama, these come from Dollar Tree. That's just where I got them. That doesn't mean that's where they have to be. These come in, like, there's lots in a container of these, and I often find them in the craft section for $1.50. You'll have something like 100 of them in there of different shapes and sizes. So again, just picking whatever works for your grade that you're looking at. The subitizing cards, we have a link for that so that you can print them off. And then same as these. These are all in the links that I'm going to show you at the end of the presentation that you'll have access to. These are cards that we found at Staples, and they have the coin on the front. They'll have the value on the back. They have multiple coins, so 2 dimes, give me 20 cents, or 2 nickels, 10 cents, and then they get larger as they go. And to a certain degree, grade 1s need to be able to do some of that, but it's limited. So you may want to call some of those if this is what you want to use, or just maybe make your own cards with the symbols on them. There's lots of programs we can use where you can just simply cut and paste them. And put them on that way. Dollar Tree, they have these cards here. Do you want to talk about those, Marianne?
The cards that we have, they're the geometry cards, pardon me. They do the different shapes, but as well, they are transparent. So when you lay the colors over, it makes a new color. So in grade 1, they need to know their colors. So it actually works for both subjects. And the kids really like to use those and see what colors they create.
Yeah, and I found that those come out closer to school starting. So you might want to check fairly soon with them to see whether they have them. They weren't at Dollarama. I've only ever seen them at Dollar Tree. So that might be a place to just check out. There's also number lines, again, that we were talking about. So we've kind of liked this number line. Do you want to talk about your uses with that, Marianne?
Well, for grade 3, what we did was we would use it for money. We would use it for all different kinds of things. This number chart was nice. I would just pull up cards or numbers and the kids would place them on there. They can use their dry erase markers. They can also use the actual coins. Maybe not so much for grade 1, but at least they can get an idea of what the number line, how it works. And it's always important, like Chris had said, to start at 0.
Yeah. And this app is a free app. It gives you a lot of flexibility as a teacher. You can go in, this at the bottom here is what I've got up here now, and you can just type in what you'd like. I'd like them to skip count by 5. So I started at 0. What would this number be? And they would type in 5 cents. What would the next number be? 10 cents, and so on. So I have full control as a teacher, whether I want them to put information like this on. I don't have to put anything there. I can start numbering anywhere I want in this particular setup. I can leave numbers blank if I'd like. So you can choose what your number line looks like. It could be a number that just starts with whole numbers, but we prefer 0. They're not going to do a ton of fractions, but they do need to have benchmarks for fractions. They need to know the half, and they need to know where it is from 0 to 1. So they need to have a sense of what that looks like. I can have a blank one, and I can ask them to fill things in. I can have no tick marks on it if that's what I want, and I want them to do that. I'm not sure I'd want that in grade 1. But I have lots of opportunities to choose what kind of number line I want and where I'd like the numbers to start. I can also use this little guy here. And when I go above or go here, it will leave a blank. I can start a number 0 and put a number here and ask them to fill in all the rest. So I could put empty boxes in here. If you're get them to go to 100, maybe you want to start your number line at 23, and you've got a couple of blank boxes along the way that you'd like them. These can be pushed out through Google Classroom as well. And so you could actually tailor make a whole bunch of them for the kids, and then not everybody would have the same one. Lots of possibilities with this one. It's very user-friendly, very easy to navigate. And so just including that as a suggested item that you might want to use as your year goes on. So these are your cards that you're going to be having in your kit. Again, they're just for review, could be where the students hold it up and they work with a partner to name what it is. Maybe they go out with a partner and find one of the shapes that's in the school that looks like this, etc. As a reference point as well, they could use those. What did they see in this classroom that's a circle? What do they see that's a square? You've got your symbols and your words that they need to know. So again, they could use symbols. They could pull up 2 dominoes, and could they add the 2 dominoes together, or 2 sides of the domino together? Are they equal? Are they unequal? Is one more or one less, right? So they could use some of their cards for that as well. And again, that will make every question different for every child, depending on which domino they turn over or whatever you give them. Could be dice. Symmetry cards that they have available. So I would work with these first so that they get a sense of how this looks. And then we could send them out to find things that they think are symmetrical. They could play with the foam ones that are in their kit first. So once they get grounded in symmetry and what we're looking for, then they could go out and look in more detail, even on the playground, what has symmetry that they can find. You also have some extra cards in there. Sorry. Let's go back one here. All right, come on, let's go back. There we go. You have a decomposing, composing template in here as well, which I would use with money to start with. Work my way up, Cuisenaire rods, maybe base 10 blocks, like just, again, starting with money to get them to think in terms of the outcomes you have for number, but also their familiarity and use of money. So this is what our kit looks like with everything packaged in it. It all fits in there nicely. I actually made a little bit of an envelope pouch. I just took some leftover paper that I had from one of these and just folded it in half and taped it on, only because I didn't want to fold my symmetry cards. Now, could they? Sure, because you could fold it in half very easily and it still won't affect the shapes. I was just being stingy and I just wanted to keep it on the outside, so I made a pocket. Just a thought. And this is the size that we used for these. We've used them all the way up to grade 3, and everything seems to fit well. They fit into a student desk and into a student cubby hole, and they don't take up a ton of room in either one of those. So here's the size of it so that you can see, and we got it at Dollarama. Included also is we've given you some templates for money so that again, students are familiar with them. They can see that 5 pennies would make a nickel, 2 nickels might make a dime. That's not unheard of for kindergarten, or sorry, grade 1. They could definitely handle those. Do they have to add these together? Not necessarily. These blanks are here. Maybe you just want to give them a number of coins and find out what they are. These are just placemats. So what I would do is laminate them. And so that you have them, they could use dry erase markers, or they can just put the items right on top of them. So they vary, and you would know when you download them, you'll know by the name that it's saved under that that's what pictures you will see in the placemat. So penny, nickel, quarter, loonie, that's what you're seeing here. And that's how they've been saved accordingly. Okay, are there anything that you can think of that we might want to add in, Marianne?
Not at this time.
Oh, what about your game idea?
Oh, yes. Game pieces. Quite often the kids will have them do games, whether it's in partners or in groups. And one thing we were always scrambling for was a game piece. So you can collect different game pieces, like, little toys or anything. I'm not sure with grade 1s, but they can also create their own game piece using Model Magic or some kind of arts and crafts. That way all the kids have a game piece ready to play, and we don't have to worry about handing out. They're all going to be different. The kids seem to enjoy that.
You bet. Yep, that's a great idea. Something that we didn't do initially, that's for sure. And if you're looking for anything that needs to be printed out that we just showed you that was in the kit, when you go into that link, here are all of your cards that I showed you. Here's the subitizing cards, and here's the composing, decomposing, and chart that you were looking for. So everything will be in here for you to access. You just have to download a copy for yourself, and then you're good to go. So hopefully that gives you just some ideas of how you might get started with grade 1. And some things that you might want to throw together, or you already have in your classroom that you might want to pull together that's just readily available for the students. So thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.